Hello.
Good morning, Kim. Your hair
How are
looks
you?
your hair looks gorgeous. She just got it.
Thanks. I just had time.
She just got it done, guys. So like this video if you like her hair. How about that?
Yeah.
Like
Still
and
got some
subscribe.
color on my forehead. Forehead's all up, but we'll cover it up.
I can't see it, so hey, the internet looks good this time. We had problems last time, folks, so we couldn't have our session, but now we've hooked up direct to Ethernet and we're golden. So hi, Eric. How are you doing?
Yeah. He's like, "What's up, Mom?" He's all moving and dancing around.
I hope you were
He's,
with us on our trip to Colorado. I felt like you were there sometime.
he says he went like this. He said, "Are you kidding?" He said, "Of course I was there.
Good.
The traveling." Um, he says, like the traveling, the camping, the outdoors. He's like, "That's me. That's
Oh,
all
it
me."
is.
He loves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, let's start out by talking about, well, I'll give you the choice. Vaccines, the importance of boundaries, or how to be self-directed and not put your self-esteem in the hands of others.
He's like, he's real animated with his movements today.
Mm-hmm.
He says he really likes the last two. He says, let's start with being self-directed.
Yeah.
Um, he says this has a lot to do with your motivation and what motivates you to do something. Um, he wants me to stop though. he goes, but stop and tell her because when you said when he was like, yeah, I love camping, and you were like, absolutely. He goes, no, abso-fucking-lutely.
Okay. And
Anyway,
we had to stop for that, huh?
had to make sure he said that. He was like,
Yeah.
just tell her. But
Not like your older sister, Christina. Mm-mm. She would stay in the camper
so,
and read books the entire time. She would have nothing to do with
oh,
bugs or dirt or animals, and you just got filthy, Eric, when you camped because it was a full contact sport for you.
oh, bless her heart. That's funny. He's like, he just kind of smiles and says, yeah, like that was just, it felt good. He
Yeah.
says it felt good. But, so, okay, he goes, anyway, he says, getting back to motivation and what motivates you to do this, that, or the other, and knowing that motivation to either be, self-directed or motivated by other people, other things, other
Society.
occurrences
Mm-hmm.
or events. Yep. He says, knowing how to, he says, well, it can be tricky. He says, a lot of people don't even realize that what they're doing isn't self-directed. He says a lot of people think that what they're doing is themselves, but most of the time what they're doing is reaction to. He says, now granted, that's part of life and part of being a human is you constantly react to different things. But if that's what always influences your actions and your decisions
Mm-hmm.
is reacting to something.
Come here,
He
Bella.
says,
Wait, I gotta get Bella. Sorry.
yeah.
There we go. She's
Oh,
pawing to get up. Okay, sorry about
oh,
that.
I hope Nona, I want to meet that baby girl.
Oh, I'll bring her over
Um,
sometime.
but he said, it's a real strong phrase, but he says, if you're always reacting to something, then you're not grounded in yourself and perhaps you don't completely know who you are. So to be self-directed is to be able to separate from society's ideas and concepts and still be able to listen to what feels right to you. People don't fucking listen to that voice anymore. He says people think, well, society thinks this, so that's what I'll do. But it doesn't feel right with me. But because society says it's normal, that's what I'll do. And that's not being self-directed. That's being directed by society. He says he wants to encourage, okay, so this is just going to feed right into boundaries. So he says that he wants to encourage people to not feel bullied or pressured by the way society is moving. He says because oftentimes people make their decisions based on just, the evolution of mankind and the way people are moving. That, oh, we're all moving in this direction. We all have to agree. No, you don't.
Yeah.
He says, in a way, you're robbing your own personal self of personal growth. So to be self-directed, Mom, he says to really listen to yourself and not just hear and listen, but be responsive. And interact with yourself and fulfill that. He says that is knowing your sacredness and knowing the essence of your value, Mom. He says, but that gets taken away if you follow society and you follow, certain things that in the back of your head don't really speak true to you. He says you're really robbing yourself of completely knowing yourself, and therefore, obviously, he says, not being self-directed and not being able to allow that to have a part of your life. He says a lot of this goes back to knowing the values, knowing the value of your own opinions and of your own, like what resonates with you and what doesn't. He's like, just because something might resonate with 10,000 people, but doesn't resonate with you, doesn't mean you're wrong or doesn't mean you're weird. It just means you know yourself. And
in my, this is kind of goes along with what I teach in my books, my parenting books. The first one was raising children who think for themselves. Is we're pack animals, and I've mentioned this before on YouTube, but this is an important place to mention it today. We're pack animals, so we have to have the sense of belonging to a pack. And there are a couple of ways to do it. You can conform, seek approval, all that stuff. And that relies on you relying on an external beacon instead of your internal beacon. And, that means that your choices have to comply, have to be such that will win you the most approval. Or you can get pack approval by contributing something meaningful, even if it's just you're a kind person or whatever. And then once you do that, you belong to the pack. You don't have to seek their approval, and you can make decisions because because your internal compass tells you to make that decision, and you can make a decision because it's the right thing for you. So anyway, but I had to do my pitch.
Yeah, he went like this. He said, "Bingo." The last part, knowing it's the right thing for you and not just the right thing for society and you in society, that's the difference. But he said, Mom, tell him about your book. Tell him about your book. He says, I want people to know that resource, because even if it's a book about raising children, he says, people are going to learn about themselves as adults in reading that. So,
well, one book that
he's just
one book that I learned a lot from just my own mistakes as a parent. One book that I read is Hearing is Believing, How Words Can Make or Break Our Kids. And sometimes some of the things we say create approval seekers. Even saying, I'm so proud of you. Because that's going to make the child think, oh, you're proud of me? Well, I want to keep doing whatever makes you proud. And then it's going to make the peers proud and society proud. Instead of saying something like, I bet you're proud, which will create self-reflection. And we'll get the kid to think, am I proud? Well, yeah. Let's see, why? Well, because I really worked hard on this project or whatever. So and you can take this language, this vocabulary that I have in this book, and apply it as adults to coworkers, to friends, to spouses, etc. Yeah. And it's so freaking easy. You'll notice a change in 2 weeks, and you'll have self-directed children and self-directed people in your life, which is good.
He says, it's true, Mom. And he says, what your book does, and just the essence of what you explained, teaches people not to fucking depend on others, but rather to depend on themselves. And he went like this. He said, perhaps that's what being self-directed is anyway. You depend on yourself and your heart, your ideas, and things that match you and are true to you, rather than, again, doing things to meet others' expectations and so on. But it's hard too, because he says oftentimes people don't even realize that they allow themselves to be bullied by society and by following fads.
What can they do if they're in that trap? Tell me some
Good.
exercises, some measures that they can do, some practical advice.
Yeah, he said really quickly, I'll have him break it down a little bit, but he said
Okay.
really quickly, he said to think for themselves. Think for yourself, people. It's not scary, that territory where you're being a self-thinker and thinking for yourself and by yourself. It's not scary, but people are scared to get there, Mom. He
But
says,
but but you said that sometimes people won't even know that they think they're thinking for themselves, but they're really not. So what do those people do?
yeah, he says that's true because he calls them like followers. They're just following. They're not grounded in themselves. He says some exercises that people could do to embody. Okay, he says like embody their own self-direction and truly know that and know the separate or know the difference between that and then being directed by society. Um, just what you said, Mom. You have to get real with yourself and ask yourself, is it right for me? And he says, if you can at least allow that to be a checkpoint, if you're making tough decisions or making changes in your life, allow that to be a checkpoint. Is this right for me? Because people are afraid to do that. He's like, here's your can of worms. He says, because then we get into the whole thing of people feel guilty and then they feel like they're being selfish. But you have to remember, if it's not right for you, then you're just going to rob yourself of the experience of truly knowing yourself. So just start there. Use that
Well,
as a checkpoint. Is this right for me?
well, what about
And
if they're afraid that they'll be disapproved of or scorned or ridiculed? What do you say to that?
he says, this is a tough one, Mom. He says, because this is their insecurities. So this is an area in confidence that they have to work on. But it also, he said, okay, he's talking really fast. Two things. He says they have to know how to trust themselves and they have to have, it's kind of like faith. It's blind faith sometimes. Too, he says, because if you can trust yourself to direct yourself, then you're really going to see your personal growth just take off. Um, he said that was boring. I could have made that way more fun instead of saying take off, like, explode, all kind. He's like take off was boring, but he's
Oh,
just
well,
rambling.
we understand it.
He says to also though to stand alone in your own truth
Mm-hmm.
and allow yourself to be self-directed. Sometimes that's necessary. Again, this is where he's talking about like separating from society, even though it might be okay, yeah. So it might be scary, but sometimes you have to stand alone, knowing, especially if you know it's right for you, you have to stand alone to follow your own truth. And he's just like, tell him about your experience, Kim, which just real quickly, being a medium, coming out of the closet about
Oh,
it, and a lot of
yeah.
not being cool with it. A lot of the family, thinking I was into like black magic and some crazy stuff. But regardless of their insecurities, I knew my truth and I had to direct my own path, so to speak, and I had to stand alone for a
Yeah.
while. And it's kind of one of those things where I was like, well, this is the path I'm going to walk. You can walk it with me or not.
Yeah.
And eventually they kind of caught up on the path. Um, but so that's, Eric, that's kind of what Eric's trying to explain is like, if you know it in your heart and you walk that path, sometimes you might have to walk alone. And it can be, oh, he changed. He was going to say it can be scary. And he said, but it's really not when you align with,
Your
whatever it
truth.
may be
Yeah.
right to you, it's
Yeah.
going to be scary. He
Yeah.
says what's more scary is trying to align with something that's fake to you or false to
So
you.
just jump off the high dive and do it. Follow your truth. That's what you're saying.
He said just fucking do it.
Just Nikes.
um,
Eric's
allow
version of the Nike
yourself to
commercial.
direct yourself.
That's
You,
Eric's version of the Nike commercial. Just fucking do it. All right.
yeah,
One last
he
question
keeps
in this.
pointing.
One last question. You said sometimes people who are externally directed are not grounded. Can you give us like one grounding technique that will help us kind of get into our own space? Connect to our own identity.
Yep. He says, Mom, it's just asking yourself, does it feel like you? Does it feel like me? If you're, he says, but this is so hairy, Mom. He said, because then you can't limit yourself either. You can't say, well, it doesn't feel like me, I'm not going to do it, because then you deny yourself of, personal growth. But so challenging yourself is good. But if it feels like something that you just don't connect with and it just doesn't resonate with you,
then don't do it.
you have to let it go, because in doing things that aren't you can like pull you out of being grounded, like can unground you, so to speak. And so is he says, just again asking yourself, is it me? Because the more you do things, whatever it may be, to honor yourself, the more grounded you're going to be in yourself, the more you're going to hear your own intuition.
That sounds
and he
good.
goes and blah blah blah.
Blah blah blah. Well, I think that's a good place to close. Thank you, Erik. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Mom. You're welcome. My pleasure.
You guys, we'll talk to you later. Please like and subscribe if you did like. And hoping you did. All right. Talk to you guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.